Alright, so today I'm listening to a short piece for chamber orchestra called Smog. It's by a Mexican composer named Zafra. And for some reason, I have two different scores that are almost identical, but one has 8 more pages of music. So I don't know which one is the correct one to be using, but for those of you looking for this type of repertoire, the instrumentation is 1111, 1110, 2 percussionists, piano, 11111. And some important doublings: the clarinet has to double on bass clarinet, and the percussionists, one has to play both timpani and hi-hat. The other has to play bass drum and tam-tam. And some other considerations: the contrabass needs to be 5-string, it needs the low C string, and the trombone needs an F trigger. And this piece was composed in 2012. We have some quarter tone accidentals, it looks like. There's some air sounds in the winds. There's a unique notation for like when the winds should stagger breathe. And there's 3 different vibrato indications. We'll be listening to the recording that's available on Zafra's SoundCloud, and this is what the first page of music looks like. This is my first time looking at his music at all, so I'm not really sure what we're in for here. So I'm just going to read his bio briefly, and then we'll get into it. Maybe it'll reveal some things about him. So Jacques Zafra, born in 1986, based in Berlin currently, and he completed his PhD at UCSD with Roger Reynolds, and before that he earned his master's degree in Leipzig, studying under Klaus Stefan Mankampf, and receiving private lessons from Johannes Kreidler. So a lot of big names associated with him. He also studied with Victor Rasgado in Mexico. I have some of Rasgado's scores, so maybe we'll look at them at a later time. There might even be a chamber opera by him that we'll get to in this series, but don't quote me on that. And we've encountered Jack before because we've used his YouTube channel, Mexican Scores, for some of our recordings. If you are intending to listen along, the link to the recording is in the description to the video. And I'll try to keep my comments short and sweet today as we get into this piece, because the piece itself is, again, not very long. I think it's about 8 minutes. Okay, yeah, really impressive piece. The recording is not the best quality, like the audio quality is really bad, but and there's a little bit of audience noise. There's like one climax where the audience starts applauding, that kind of thing. But I think if you can listen past that, it's actually quite a interesting piece, and it reminded me a lot of Victor Rasgado's music in some ways, like his use of the ensemble and his sparing use of strings, the emphasis on like percussion and brass and percussive uses of strings, and these sort of like blocks of instruments. All of that was really interesting and kind of reminded me of his teacher Rasgado, who he may have been studying with when he wrote this. I noticed on Zafra's website it said like pre-2013 works were Mexican compositions, so he probably was in Mexico when he wrote this. And yeah, some general observations. I really liked the use of piano in it. It was a really good example of like piano being used in a large ensemble context. There's some parts where it's really subtle, and there's other parts where it comes out of the texture a little bit. Um, and it never feels like the piano is being overused. The percussion was an interesting choice. Like, there's a lot of timpani in it, which I guess sort of colors the sound of the piece. And I found the organization of the like introduction of the piece and then the following sections was a little bit like blocky, but there was definitely enough interesting things going on to keep my attention, and the pitch content was very carefully controlled. I think I heard like this tritone motive a lot, and there were some moments where the pitches, like the rate at which we heard pitches, was slowed down, and we had some nice octaves and unisons and things, and it sounded like a little bit more consonant. And then there were other sections that were busier and sounded more modernist, I guess you could say. Hopefully, the composer can, or has since then, gotten it performed more, and we'll get better recordings of it in the future. I think it is pretty evocative of the title. There's sections that are very cloudy, and but I wouldn't say it's like hazy or like it is definitely more dark and sinister than that. And I think Smog is a pretty good title. So yeah, that was our first piece by Jacques Zafra, and it seems like a recent piece in the context of this series, but I mean, in the context of this composer's work, it seems to be quite old. So if you heard anything that you like in this, I would encourage you to like check out his newer stuff. I'm sure that he's been up to a lot in the past 12 years, and his music's probably changed quite significantly, considering he's born in the 1980s. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So tomorrow we're looking at some Milica Djordjevic. This piece, Firefly in a Jar, is really fantastic, and I'm excited to talk about it. It's one of my go-to listening examples for students. So yeah, we'll keep moving along with chamber orchestra here.